A virgin. They say she's the most breathtaking woman any of them have ever laid eyes on. A thrilling passion novel. The cathedral bells tolled noon, sharp and biting, cutting through the stifling hush that had stretched 50 agonizing minutes. Sunlight blazed through stained glass, painting the vacant spot at the altar in streaks of burning amber and deep crimson, where the groom was meant to stand. Damian Vance, 34, ruled Vance global empire with an iron fist and a soul sheathed in ice. He stood 6'3", a towering, formidable frame wrapped in bespoke midnight wool that clung to broad, sculpted shoulders and tapered down a torso honed by years of relentless discipline. His face was a masterpiece of severe, breathtaking handsomeness. High, razor-sharp cheekbones, a jawline carved like polished granite, a straight aristocratic nose, and lips that were full and firm yet permanently set in a cold, unyielding line. His hair was jet black, styled with military precision, and his eyes deep, bottomless obsidian held a gaze so piercing it could silence boardrooms, make grown men flinch, and send rivals scrambling for cover. He was aloof, calculating, feared across the nation. A man who had buried every soft part of himself to build an empire no one could ever take from him. His parents had cornered him with an ultimatum. Marry the daughter of his father's oldest and most powerful business ally. A woman he had never met, whose name they had deliberately kept hidden. Or forfeit his birthright, his company, and every asset he had ever earned. He had agreed only to buy time, his jaw clenched with simmering resentment. But when the wedding morning dawned, the weight of being traded like livestock snapped his control. He stormed out of his penthouse, drove until the city skyline blurred behind him, and vanished. He told himself their rage would cool, that they would eventually forgive his defiance. He never stopped to wonder what became of the girl left waiting for him. Weeks later, the humiliated father of his intended bride extended a generous lifeline. Funds to cover Damian's own ailing father's urgent medical care, in exchange for salvaging the union. Blinded by pride and fury at being manipulated, Damian spat the offer back without a second thought. He refused every cent, severed all contact, and shut himself away. Until one evening, his closest friend leaned in, voice low and charged with intrigue. "You need to see this. A strictly private, high-stakes auction for the elite. One lot is driving the richest men in the country wild, a virgin. They say she's the most breathtaking woman any of them have ever laid eyes on." Damian scoffed at first, then restlessness. Dark and restless curiosity took root. He had nothing left to lose. He would go, if only to find a distraction from the hollow anger gnawing at his chest. Lira Valerio, the bride left behind. Lira Valerio stood alone at the altar, her ivory lace gown fitting her like a whisper, elegant, modest, yet unable to hide the lush, graceful curves of her frame. She was 21, a vision of intoxicating, unearthly beauty. Slender yet full in all the places that caught the breath, moving with a soft, unconscious allure that felt both innocent and devastatingly magnetic. Her skin was warm, luminous honey ivory, smooth as polished silk, glowing with a natural radiance of youth. Her hair was a cascade of rich, burnished chestnut, falling in soft, glossy waves past her shoulders, catching the light like spun amber. Her lips were full, naturally tinted a deep rose, shaped in a soft pout that looked made to be kissed. Her eyes were large, almond-shaped, of pure molten gold amber, framed by long dark lashes that swept upward like dark wings. She was untouched, unkissed, her heart and body guarded like a sacred vow. Yet there was a quiet, simmering sensuality in the way she held herself, a grace, and warmth that made her impossible to look away from. Her father was fading fast, struck down by a terminal illness that drained his strength and their savings alike. Their family business had collapsed months prior, leaving them drowning in debt and facing the threat of halting his life-saving treatment. His dying wish was simple: to see her safe, settled, provided for long after he was gone. He had arranged her marriage to the son of his dearest childhood friend, a man she had never met, convinced it was the only way to secure her future. Lira hesitated, dreaming of choice and love. But she could not refuse the man who had given her everything. She agreed, telling herself duty was its own kind of love. Then the groom never came. Whispers erupted like wildfire. She wasn't good enough. He changed his mind. She's been rejected. Heat burned her cheeks. Shame coiled tight in her throat. But she held her head high and walked out of the church with her dignity still intact. Days turned into weeks. Her father's condition worsened, and the hospital delivered its final warning: pay the outstanding balance, or treatment stops. Desperate, cornered, she was approached by a woman who spoke in hushed, urgent tones. There is a way, a private auction. Men will pay fortunes for what you have: your purity. You will be safe, your terms will be honored, and the money will save your father. Lira trembled, her face flushing hot with shame. But when she looked at her father's pale, fragile form, she steeled her heart. She would offer the only precious thing she had left: her untouched self. She would do it not out of greed, but out of a love so fierce it burned through every fear. The auction thrill, spellbinding attraction, and fateful bid. The venue was a heavily guarded estate, hidden deep in the rolling hills. A fortress of glass and marble ringed with private security, where only the country's wealthiest and most powerful were granted entry. No phones, no outsiders, no record secrecy was absolute. The air hummed with electric tension, thick with expensive cologne, the faint clink of crystal, and low, hungry murmurs as the elite waited for the night's most anticipated lot. Guards stood at every exit, scanning every face, the atmosphere charged with an undercurrent of risk and excitement. Damian arrived late, leaning against a shadowed marble pillar, his expression bored and dismissive, until the auctioneer stepped forward and announced in a booming voice, "And now our crown jewel, a true untouched beauty. 21 years of age. No man has ever touched her, no man has ever claimed her. Her name is Lira Valerio." The heavy velvet curtains swept open. The entire room fell dead silent. Damian's breath caught sharply in his throat, his entire body locking up as his gaze snapped to the center stage. There she stood, bathed in a single beam of warm golden light, wearing a gown of soft pearl silk that clung gently to her figure, outlining the soft swell of her hips and the delicate curve of her waist, her hair half tucked back with a single white jasmine bloom, her amber eyes wide with a mix of fear and quiet resolve. She was breathtaking, sexy, radiant, pure, a vision so striking it felt like a physical blow to his chest. His pulse hammered wildly, a rush of heat and longing unlike anything he had ever known, flooding his veins. In that instant, he did not see a lot or a transaction. He saw the most beautiful, captivating woman he had ever laid eyes on, and every instinct screamed that she was meant for him. The bidding exploded instantly. 20 million. 35 million. 50 million. Voices rose fast, numbers climbing higher and higher as wealthy men leaned forward, eyes hungry, treating her like a rare artifact to be claimed. Lyra's hands trembled at her sides, her chin lifting defiantly even as her heart hammered against her ribs. She had no idea who the tall, imposing man in the shadows was, only that his dark gaze felt like it was seeing straight through her. Then Damian pushed off the pillar and stepped into the light, his presence commanding every eye in the room, his voice a low, thunderous command that silenced every bidder. 120 million. A collective gasp tore through the hall. Heads snapped toward him. Lyra's golden eyes went wide, startled by the staggering sum and the intensity in his obsidian gaze. Damian walked slowly toward the stage, his gaze locked unwaveringly on hers, every step charged with tension and an unfamiliar, overwhelming pull he could not explain. When he stood before her, his voice softened, low enough only for her to hear. The full sum will be transferred to your father's medical team immediately. I will cover every expense, every treatment, every need for as long as he lives. You owe me nothing, no time, no favors, nothing you do not give freely. But no one else here will have you. Lyra stared up at him, equal parts stunned and wary, having no clue this was the very man who had left her waiting at the altar. She nodded slowly, too overwhelmed to speak. The auctioneer struck the gavel hard, the sound echoing like a gunshot, and the deal was sealed. The thrill was electric-charged tension, undeniable chemistry, and the terrifying, exhilarating pull of two souls drawn together by a force neither understood. The truth that shatters everything. In the weeks that followed, Damian kept every promise. He arranged for Lyra's father to be transferred to the country's top private medical facility, spared no expense for specialists and care, and never pressured her for anything. He spent time with her listening to her speak of her father, her dreams, her fears, and found himself falling deeper and harder each day. He admired her courage, her gentleness, her quiet strength, and the way she carried herself with grace, even in the darkest of times. Lyra, in turn, began to see past his ruthless reputation. She saw his quiet care, his loyalty, the loneliness he hid behind his cold exterior, and found her own heart opening to him, drawn to his protectiveness and the sincerity in his dark eyes. Neither ever mentioned the failed arranged weddings, too painful, too personal, and never suspecting the other was involved. Damian knew his parents were eager to see him settle down, and now that he had found the woman he truly loved, he wanted nothing more than to introduce her to them. Proud to show them he had chosen someone precious and worthy of his heart. One evening, he brought Lyra to his family's sprawling ancestral home, his hand warm and steady at her back as they walked into the grand drawing room. His parents stood to greet them, his father's smile fading instantly as his gaze landed on Lyra, his mother's hand flying to her mouth in shock. "Lyra?" His father breathed, stepping forward as if in a daze. "Lira Valerio?" Lyra froze, her eyes going wide. "Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance." Damian frowned, confused, glancing between them. "You know her." His father turned to him, his voice heavy with disbelief and regret. "Damian, this is the girl, the one we arranged for you to marry, the daughter of my oldest friend. This is your intended bride." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Damian's blood ran cold. His mind reeled, every piece falling into place with brutal clarity. The girl he had left waiting at the altar without a second thought. The woman he had refused to help out of foolish pride. The beautiful, brave soul he had fallen completely in love with. They were one and the same. He stared at Lira, his heart twisting with a sharp, agonizing mix of shock, profound regret, and crushing remorse. He thought of the humiliation she had endured, the desperation that had driven her to the auction, all because of his anger, his pride, his refusal to listen. Sympathy and guilt washed over him in waves. He realized with a heavy heart that she had resorted to such lengths solely to save her father, that her pain was in part his fault. Lira stared back at him, her golden eyes filling with tears as the truth crashed down on her. The man who had bought her bid, the man who had captured her heart, was the very same groom who had abandoned her at the altar. Redemption and unbreakable love. The silence stretched long and heavy. When Damian finally spoke, his voice was raw, stripped of all arrogance and coldness. He turned to Lira, his gaze full of remorse and devotion, and poured out every word. How he had never known her name or face. How he had walked away out of anger at being controlled. How he had rejected the offer without ever knowing who it was for. How deeply sorry he was for every tear he had caused her. How he had come to love her not out of obligation, but with every beat of his heart. "I am not here because my parents told me to be," he said softly, reaching for her hand. "I am here because you are the woman I want with all your courage, your kindness, your beautiful heart. I missed our first chance because I was foolish and proud. But if you will let me, I will spend every day making it up to you. I will cherish you, protect you, and choose you every single time." Lira looked into his eyes, saw the sincerity and regret there, and felt her heart soften. She had seen his true character in the weeks they had spent together, his kindness, his generosity, his care for her father, and she knew that the man standing before her was not the same one who had run away. Slowly, she nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I choose you too," she whispered. Damian's parents apologized profusely for keeping their identities hidden, admitting it had been a grave mistake. In the months that followed, Damian stood by Lira as her father slowly recovered, supporting her every step of the way. He became a softer, kinder man because of her, and Lira found the love and security she had always dreamed of. The wedding that was always meant to be. Months later, Lira's father was strong and stable, his health restored beyond all expectations. This time there was no arrangement, no ultimatum, no pressure, only two people who had found each other against all odds. On a bright, sunlit day, Damian stood at the altar, his eyes fixed only on Lira. When she walked down the aisle radiant, glowing, her beauty taking his breath away, he did not wait for her to reach him. He walked forward to meet her halfway, took her hands in his and whispered, "I missed our first beginning, but I promise you this is forever." Lira smiled through happy tears as they exchanged their own vows, sealed with a kiss full of love and promise. The ruthless billionaire had found his heart. The gentle virgin had found her true love. What began as a tragedy of misunderstandings had become the most beautiful story of destiny, second chances, and a love that outlasted every mistake. The end.